next programming coming up is going to be a really great interview. So we are going to have a sit-down interview with Kitchen and Bath Business's Person of the Year. So the Kitchen and Bath Business Person of the Year competition honors those who are passionate, innovative, and influencing the kitchen and bath industry in a positive way. Past recipients include Matthew Quinn, who joined us on stage earlier in the week for the Legends of Kitchen Design panel, Veronica Solomon, Cheryl Keys-Clendenin, and Jeannie Chung. Announced in December, it's become a KBIS NEXTStage tradition for Chelsie Butler, executive editor of Kitchen and Bath Business, to chat with the recipient. And today, the 2023 Kitchen and Bath Business Person of the Year, Nureed Saeed, will join Chelsie, and you'll see very quickly why Nureed received this amazing and well-deserved honor. Chelsie and Nureed, welcome to the stage.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It's exciting. Hope you have had a great KBIS so far, and your feet and your back don't hurt too badly. So yeah, I'm the editor of KBB, and I'm excited and honored to be here with Nureed Saeed, our 2023 Person of the Year. She's definitely very deserving of the award. She's the owner and creative director of New Interiors in California, and she stood in New Jersey. And she stood out as our winner for a variety of reasons, and today we are going to dig a little deeper into some of those. So, welcome, Nureed. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so let's start out by you just telling the audience a little bit about you and your firm.
Yeah, so New Interiors is a bi-coastal holistic design practice really focused on mostly kitchens and bathrooms and some large-scale home renovations, servicing clients in New Jersey and California.
Right. So a big reason why you were chosen for the award is because of your efforts toward diversity, equity, and inclusion in the design industry. Can you talk a little bit about how your interest in that started and what some of your accomplishments have been?
Yeah, so I would say that it's, for me, the DEI work is not just an interest, it is a reason for all of us to want to be a part of our communities, and something that I feel deeply about in terms of just how I go through the world and how I have always lived my life. And I often talk about an example of early in my life. My father is a fairly religious man, and he would go to different mosques around our community in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And people tend to self-segregate, so there's a community of Turkish Muslims and a community of South Asian Muslims and Arab Muslims and all different people from all different walks of life. And my dad would go to all of them, despite him having immigrated from Pakistan many, many years ago. And I said to him once, I said, why do you go to all of the mosques? And he said, well, that's the whole point. You're supposed to be with everybody. You're not supposed to be with one kind of person. You're supposed to be with all kinds of people. And it always stuck with me that I'm supposed to be with everybody, and I'm supposed to try and be a part of all the communities that I'm a part of. So for me, the DEI work is just a part of that, giving voice to people who need voices.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. So sustainability is also near and dear to your heart. So how do you translate that value into your kitchen and bath projects?
So again, when I talk about the holistic design process, people always say, well, what does that really mean? It sounds like jargon. And for me, it's really the concept of just thinking about everything in a whole, not just the project in a whole and the client's needs in a whole, but thinking about their connectivity to all of their goals for their children and their communities or their families, and also how each piece of their design and their construction and where it's all going. So from how things are being disposed of to what product is coming in and how it came to their home in the first place, it's really the thought that everything touches everybody and that we should really be thinking about things in that circular way.
So obviously, California is kind of in a class on its own with sustainability. And being here at KBIS, I have seen and learned of so many brands that, follow through with that kind of thing from, manufacturing, all that good stuff. So do you feel like that's translating into more client homeowner interests in being more sustainable? Because I talk to a lot of designers who believe in it, and they make sure it's instilled in the projects, but the clients didn't necessarily ask for that.
Yeah, so I would say I live in Northern California, and where I used to live in New Jersey, I always say to folks that is probably the most comparable place where I lived in New Jersey, was kind of very comparable to where I live in California in terms of views on sustainability. And so my clients are asking for those things. And they're most definitely, I get questions about induction every kitchen renovation, but I also ask those questions. I have a whole questionnaire that I give my clients before we even start the project. So I'm already prompting for where they're at, but for sure they're asking about where's the stone coming from, how's it getting here. I'm encouraging my clients to think out of the box about even their appliance choices or their plumbing choices, and think of brands that are made here in the US so that their carbon footprint is lower, and that we can also support local home businesses, and all the way through to the materials that are being made with, and so on and so forth. So I had the opportunity to visit some factories in Europe as well over the fall, and even that part of it, I go back and I share it with my clients, like that they're using 100% solar power to actually make this cabinet piece for you, or that they're using 100% recycled materials to create this cabinet door for you. Same thing with countertops, everything else. So for me, it's really, again, it's a holistic approach and a full thought process, and all of my clients are asking these questions. And if they're not, I'm explaining it to them, and then they're even more interested and engaged to want to know.
So I'm assuming your home is fully sustainable.
I wish it was. I wish it was, but again, sustainability doesn't necessarily mean, one piece of it. I think for me, it's also the idea that, do we have to rip everything apart and put everything new back in, or can we be respectful to the homes and love them somewhat as they are, and just maybe put a coat of paint on something or change a piece of hardware? So I would say to you that my sustainable approach for my own home, being a 1954 house in the Berkeley Hills, was that had great bones, and it survived a fair amount of shakes and turns from the Bay Area over the years, and that it had great systems. And for me, it was not so much about tearing it all apart and putting it in new. I really kept a lot of it the way it was and just put a polish on it, because that is truly more sustainable than tearing everything apart.
Yeah, definitely. So let's pivot over to talking about a day in the life as an NKBA chapter president. I know you won the 2023 Star Award out of 71 chapters, which is quite an accomplishment. So
Yeah.
tell us what that's like.
No day is the same. No day is the same. It's a huge job. I'm incredibly humbled to be in the role for the time I'm in it. It's a short time. It's a 2-year term, and then if you're lucky enough for your membership to think that you're deeming of another term, you get another term, which I'm in my 2nd term now. And it's not. I was telling somebody the other day who's also a chapter president, and he said, what do you think about all of this? And I said, it's not about me. It's about the chapter and what we can give to the chapter for this little period, and that maybe I'll leave it a little better off than it was, and that I'll pass it on to somebody else, and then they'll make it a little better than it already was. And I think each person comes in and adds they give their gifts to the position and to the role and to the chapter. And it incrementally just gets bigger and bigger and better because of all of the people who are willing to volunteer their time to do it.
Yeah. Lots of work, but very rewarding.
It's like a second job. It absolutely is a second job. It's a ton of work, but I love it, and I love my community. I love my chapter members. I love being a part of it. It's rewarding to see them all.
All right, so tell us about your charity program with the Make It Home Bay Area.
So through our NKBA chapter, we developed what we're calling the NKBA Community Cares Program. And what it is a appliance donation program that is being sponsored by Ferguson in our local area. So shout out to Ferguson for that, thank you. And essentially, right now we're helping to service the Marin Foster Care Association through Make It Home with appliances that could be lightly used or could be seconds, but or also could be new. I mean, it really just depends on what the need is, but really helping the foster care families who give so much to care for these children. And if you don't have a dishwasher or you don't have a washer dryer, how are you going to care for these children? How are you going to do it? Sorry, I'll cry thinking about it because the people who do this work are just amazing, truly amazing. And so I'm getting emotional. See, I'm getting emotional, but really the foster parents who do this, if we can help in a little way, it's my whole year.
I need to ask you one of those funny questions.
I know, you have to ask me a funny question. You shouldn't have asked me that one.
I'm going to hopefully get to that. So as the Person of the Year winner, you were noted as an advocate for residential segregation. Saying that okay. Can you explain what that is and why it means so much to you?
Yeah, so residential segregation, the group that I worked with, it started out as called the New Movement to Address Residential Segregation, and it started from the author Richard Rothstein. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He wrote The Color of Law, which talks about the historical fact of how essentially the US government helped create sponsored segregation in the way we all live today. So when people say, oh, does everybody live in that section? And why does everyone live in that section? And a lot of it came through housing policies in the early 40s and 50s that essentially enabled some people to be able to get zero interest loans and buy homes, and other people could not. And I won't mince words, it allowed people in white communities to do that and people in black and brown communities not. So what happened over time is essentially the real estate market grew, and we all realized that wealth came from real estate. So people who were able to buy homes in the 50s were able to use that leverage to send their children to college and obtain other types of wealth. And other people were not able to do that because they were that door was never open to them. When people did try to go buy homes from the black communities, many different things would happen. Redlining would happen where districts were completely and totally changed as a result of some people saying, oh, my housing prices will go down if those folks move in. Other times, totally illegal practices, like in deeds, it was signed that basically you could not sell it to a black person. And if you look at your deeds from very long time ago, it still exists in some of your deeds. They're not enforceable, but it does exist. So it's a whole thing of why we live the way, when we talk about all of the problems that we're having, it actually started with a very theoretically simplistic thing. And the other part of it talks about single-family home zoning. So to keep multifamily units from not being in certain areas, which would enable lower income housing to be able to pop up, or people in lower socioeconomic stratas to be able to live in certain communities. They can't because they can't afford a full home. So, and I live in Berkeley, California, and that is the originator of single-family zoning. So despite its very progressive standpoint, that's where it started from. So It's not a simple answer. I apologize. It's not like I can't just distill it into one sentence. But my work in it is this: that I had joined that group to help support and bolster what came of it, which is the redress movement, and their whole focus is to address town by town how to talk about single-family zoning, how to talk to town council to remove that from certain places and allow for more multifamily unit housing to give, yesterday in the State of the Association, we talked about more housing being needed. A really simple way to do it is to go and lobby with your community to ask for single-family zoning to be removed so that more multifamily unit housing can be, and then lower income housing would be available. So we don't need more land necessarily, we actually need different zoning, which is something that Dr. O had talked about a little bit. So, it's incredibly, I'm clearly very passionate about it. It's an incredibly important topic, and how it relates to me as a kitchen and bath designer is really simple. If you hold wealth, you hold the ability to be able to do a kitchen and bath renovation. And there's this gap between the haves and the have-nots, and one of my goals in being a part of this is hopefully to allow other folks to be able to have the access to a home, and if they're in a home, to have access to be able to renovate that home without penalty, because in some places, it's not as easy to do it. It's not as easy for people to leverage even the small amount of wealth they might have to be able to get a home loan to do those renovations and to use that wealth. So it's a really big topic, and it's incredibly important for all of us to be aware of how we touch it, again, holistically.
Right, so definitely a lot of serious but necessary topics. We will get to some lighter stuff later, but so you were an inaugural participant in the NKBA's Women to Women conference, so tell us a little bit about that.
That was really just an amazing experience, and I was just talking to one of the 30s back there, and so she was saying, oh, I was in the second class, and everybody said, oh, do you know Nureed? And she thought that she had missed me. I said, no, I was in the first class. And I was telling her that I remember sitting in my hotel room before the first dinner or the first cocktail party, and kind of feeling sick to my stomach, like a kid going to school for the first day. And I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know any of these people. I feel really uncomfortable. And then I went and got over myself and did it, and just ended up meeting the most incredible humans and made all these incredible connections. And I'm on this stage actually because of that program, because the person who nominated me was my sister from that inaugural. I call her my sister because we sat at one dinner, and I thought I'd known her my whole life. And she's not here, but Stephanie, love you and thank you. And so it started from that, and it really was. It's Susie. I think Susie says you'll see in this class, you'll see women who will see you and want to lift you up, and it does exactly that.
So you mentioned making those connections. Just wanted to touch base quickly on your thoughts about how beneficial that is, making those connections as a designer, not just a woman, but in your profession as well.
I think it's everything. Just like in volunteerism and in life and in any other part of it, community is everything. And for me, I could not have survived moving to Northern California from New Jersey without my NKBA community. I could not have. It just would not have. I wouldn't have understood it. I wouldn't have been able to assimilate. It really was, it's everything to me is about the connections. And it's not just in my volunteerism or in my time with the NKBA, but in my design work. Again, it's just the little threads that you meet someone, you have this conversation, and all of a sudden it turns into, oh, well, hey, guess what? Do you went to Women to Women? Oh, come, put your name in the bucket for the Nobilia Germany tour because you were there, says Sherry Quails. And I said, oh, okay, sure, no problem. Oh, guess what? I won. and I end up in Germany with like 5 other amazing designers, and like that turns into something. And then, so it's just, you know, and then I end up there last night with, you know, at the Bash with all the Nobilia crew, and it's just like, it's amazing how one little thread of a sincere, authentic, genuine connection can turn into this like blooming flower of like unbelievable connections and moments, and I'm just grateful for them all. I'm grateful for them all.
So you look pretty well rested especially from going to the Bash. So
I was a pumpkin at 11:59, and there are people in this audience who can vouch for that.
Yeah. So I didn't make it. I had an early meeting, and I feel bad, but I should have. So let's talk about the talk you did at a recent chapter event, the DEI and Beyond.
Yeah, so that was a co-facilitated discussion with my partner in that, Dr. Sharon J. Washington, who is one of our designers in the Bay Area, but also has a lifetime of educational history and educational experience, and specifically in this topic. So we co-facilitated that discussion, and the idea of it was really that we talk about these terms, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oftentimes they are interchanged as all the same words, but they are not the same words. They are actually individual things with individual goals. And while theoretically they can be combined together, you have to really think about what your goal is for it. Diversity is really that there's one of everybody. And if that's what you want to do and you want to check everybody off the box, then that's what you're going to try and say, okay, this is a very diverse group. Inclusion is the idea that everybody actually is there, but everyone's also included in that conversation. If someone else does not feel safe or comfortable to have a seat at that table, then I'm pulling the seat up at the table for them and saying, come sit down at this table with me. And then, the equity piece of it is the idea that not necessarily that it's one pie and we all get a piece of it. It's the idea that we all, as individuals, have different sets of privileges and different sets of where our pie is, and that there's plenty of pie for everybody. We all can have pie. We just have to think about who needs a little bit more here and someone needs a little bit less over here maybe, but we're all gonna get the same amount if we think about it in that way. So the idea was to help clarify those topics and talk about as individuals, as designers, as people in business, in your showroom experience, and in our interactions even with our fellow chapter members, how are you thinking about these topics and how are we incorporating them into every day of our lives? Not just, is this, again, a checklist of HR terms or HR policies that we're going to incorporate. And while those are important and start to help maybe make a small ripple in a wave, but they aren't all of it. And oftentimes, and this topic as well as sustainability to me are incredibly combined because it's the idea of equity, design equity, right? The idea that everybody, and the residential segregation, it's all connected. We all should have the ability to have access to a well-designed, healthy, thoughtful, sustainable home that gives us joy and makes us feel like we can accomplish whatever it is that we want to accomplish. Everyone has the right to that and to the access to that. And that was really the part of the talk that I thought was so important.
All right, so what's some advice that you would give to somebody just entering the industry, be it, just out of design, some sort of a design school, or they're changing careers, what would you say?
Just out of design school? Learn to be flexible and embrace the chaos, because this construction, this world, delivery issues, dealing with different personalities, dealing with clients, it's kind of chaotic, but just learn to kind of go with it and I think embrace some of it and find your people in it who you can really connect with and have those moments with so that it can feel a little bit, build your community really to help you with, and maybe learn how to do breathing exercises too. So I would say that for sure. And then be authentic, be yourself, I think that there's an overwhelming pressure with social media and all of the different things that are out there to look at something and be like, oh, well, I should be posting this many times, or I should look like this, or I should do this, or I should say this, I should have a marketing plan. Like all the shoulds, the millions of shoulds that we should have. And I would say just being authentic is the core of it. And I think the minute I decided to stop caring about the shoulds and start just really staying true to, is this my, where's my North Star? And is everything I'm doing leading to that North Star, which for me are my children, plain and simple. Every single thing I do, whether it's my community work or my work in my business or my personal, if it's not leading to something that's going to help me remain connected and close to my family, then for me it's not worth it. And so I feel that the North Star concept is so important, and so find your North Star and hold on to it, and just every time you're doubting yourself, think about your North Star. Take a deep breath and think and the last thing I'll say is it's okay to say no. And I'm going to say that especially, I'm going to say it again, it's okay to say no, especially as women. I feel like we're constantly pulled in 20 directions and told you have to say yes to every single thing that is put in front of you, but you can say no, and it's totally okay.
So what would be like the ideal client for you to work with?
Well, I tell people my clients are me. They are incredibly busy. They probably have way too many children like I do, and just busy professionals who really, they want a beautiful home, they want a functioning home, they want something that holds value to them in their hearts and tells their personality and their story, but they also don't want to have to be stressed out if their children are going to accidentally eat something on their white sofa. So, I think there's like a lot of me in my clients, and the other thing I'll say is that many of my clients come to me specifically for my viewpoints on my DEI work and whatnot. And really, it's two things. They say, I know you can be in my home because I trust you. We know where your heart is. And they also come to me because they say, I don't see myself in the interior design world. I don't see myself when I open a magazine. But then you're there, so I do see myself, and so that holds value to them. So for me, it's, again, the representation is important, and for my clients, it's been incredibly important for them to know that they are seen.
So in kind of the same vein, what are some red flags, like some potential clients you meet with and you're like, I don't think this is gonna be a match?
I think I'm no different than probably a lot of other seasoned designers, right? There's some red flags that we all get, and I see a few folks laughing already, right? So, I think, let's see, my favorite is when you do a kitchen renovation and they say, well, I only want to spend X. And the number is probably from like 10 years ago, not from today. And so I think that's a little bit, not a full red flag, but it's an educational process for me to have to explain to them that that's just not what things cost anymore. But it is definitely a red flag when they say, oh, well, I can find it on, whatever, and it's cheaper. And I'm like, okay, well then, we should.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, then maybe I'm not your gal. That's okay. That's all right. I wish you the best of luck. And then for me, the other part is, when folks are kind of like, I want an all-white kitchen with white subway tile. And those are lovely and timeless, and I am not disparaging it, but it's just not my aesthetic. And so I always tell people that, you should totally have what you want, but I'm not the right person for you. And I say that because I take enormous pride in my business as a brand, and there is a certain value that I hold in my project management skills as well as my design aesthetic. And so for me, that's a red flag when folks don't want the project management and they don't want that particular aesthetic.
So if I ever get around to renovating, I will hire you because I I too am tired of the white kitchens.
You know,
Some of them are lovely, but it's just not enough contrast there. There's more out there than that. All right, so let's talk about the most important lesson you feel like you've learned through your career.
That's a good one. I really do think it goes back to what I would tell a student. It's being authentic, being true to myself, and it's just knowing when to say no, whether it's to a certain engagement, because there's a million things you could do at KBIS, and just, you know, some things you just can't go to, or whether it's, you know, even just honestly to my own husband, saying, no, I cannot do that for you. You will have to do that yourself. And saying no has been really my saving grace over the years, and it took me a very long time to be comfortable with saying it.
So you were, you know, you said being the NKBA chapter president is like a second job, and your main job sounds really busy, and then all of these other activations that you're into. How have you been able to do all of those? Are you very good at delegating?
I'm really good at project management. I think it's why people hire me, because there's so many moving parts, so I just liken it to the job that is the job. There's a million moving parts and so many things that have to come in, and all these different tradespeople and different things that are happening, and I'm very good at keeping things relatively on time and relatively on budget, and so project management is the key for me in my design world, but it's the key for everything. And I mentioned I have 3 children. They're almost 11, twins that are almost 11, and a 10-year-old, almost 10-year-old. And so, like, again, I have the 3 kids. My husband's an attorney at a law firm, so I'm usually the primary caregiver. And then I'm on 2 coasts every month. So for me, everything is just about how do I learn to project manage and bucket my time and be organized about it. And that includes the job of being president of the NKBA Northern California chapter.
Yeah, when I was going over the nomination for you, and you didn't even, it wasn't a self-nomination, so there, all of these things weren't even listed on there, and I was just like, I don't understand how she could possibly have time for all of that, but.
I mean, I do sleep.
Yeah.
You don't want to know me in the morning if I didn't, so I definitely sleep.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm just really good at understanding how to organize my time, bucket my time, and I feel like the folks from my chapter who are on the council will attest to the fact that I like to stay on agenda. I'm like, okay, we only had 5 minutes for that. Moving on, let's go. We got to keep moving. So, and I feel like I'm like that with everything. I'm like that with my client meetings. I'm like, I have an hour for you. Let's keep going. We have to keep moving. I'm like that when my contractors want to complain. I'm like, okay, did you get it off your chest? Now how are we going to find a solution? And that's the other part of it, is that people really love to talk, but they don't like to actually think about the action. And I'm all for the collective community therapy, because I do it all the time with, my fellow chapter council members, where like, I got to talk to you about this thing. So, but once you've gotten through that, the next part for me is always, how are we going to activate a solution? What is the solution? Where are we going to get to? Because, we can spin around in circles talking about the why, what, when, who, and our feelings about it, but it really does not matter unless we are actively seeking out ways to change things. And again, for me, that's my lesson with my kids. Like, okay, we had a meltdown here. That's great. You felt your feels. Now, what are we going to do differently now? How are we going to do this different? Same thing with my chapter council. And I'm telling you, they will say this to me. I have said it to them. I'm like, okay, are we good? Can we? Let's keep going. And I think, I'm direct. I'm from New Jersey, so I'm direct about it. But I also think I have a sense of humor about it and a kindness about it and I'm not saying I am, I'm not like patting myself on the back saying I'm a kind person, but I think I try to hold space for the fact that people have feelings and they have to feel them. And if they don't, then we're never going to get anywhere, you know? So I always try to make space for it. And I think, to me, that's also been, it seems like there's no time for that. That's the big thing, right? We never think we have time to talk about those things, but we do. We have time for it because it makes solution finding that much faster.
So how do you deal with things like just sort of burnout from all of this, being so busy all the time? Like, how do you give yourself a break? Or do you?
I mean, that's my goal for this year, is to work on that part of it. I'm failing, but I'm, I would say there's a couple of small things. With kids, they often talk about, you have to breathe with them to help them work through their feelings and work through things. And I'm saying it kind of like this way because it sounds like funny, but weirdly, I'm like, you know what? They're actually onto something there. Like, the child psychologists are kind of onto something there. I think that's actually right. I do need to just start. So I really do like a lot of breathing. I take a lot of moments, like I'll take 10 minutes in the morning, sit with my coffee or my tea, take a few deep breaths, close my eyes, and it's kind of I just need like the 10 to 15 minutes. And then at night, it's the same kind of thing. I'm like, whenever pajamas o'clock can happen, I'm like there. So I'm just like, yep, I'm gonna put my pajamas on. I'm gonna sit in my bed and answer these emails. I'm gonna take a few deep breaths before I go to bed, and I'm gonna try again tomorrow. But that's the biggest part, is that everybody has a to-do list, and I do not beat myself up about not crossing every single thing off the list. I'm like, I could do it tomorrow. There'll always be tomorrow, but I won't have tomorrow to have this moment with my child. So I'm gonna put this over here, and I'm gonna hug my child for about 10 minutes before I go to bed.
Nice. So from where do you draw your design inspiration?
Well, definitely a lot of mid-century modern. I just love it. I've always loved it, and I attribute it to my engineer father, who worked for the New Jersey Department of Transportation as a civil engineer for so many years, and the original building that they were in was just this amazing, I can picture it in my head, and they tore it down and built a new building decades ago, but it was just the coolest building. It had the open staircase with like a tree atrium in the center, and it was like black and brown and walnut with terrazzo floors, and I was like, I remember going in there with him being like, this is the coolest office building ever. I want to work here, Dad. And then at one point, he lived in Springfield, Illinois, and he was a civil engineer for the state of Illinois for several years. So that's like right across the river from St. Louis, Missouri. And he lived there in 1962, I think it is, when the Gateway Arch was being built in St. Louis, and by Eero Saarinen. And so photography was his hobby, and he has these original photographs of his on slides of the Gateway Arch being built, and I have them. And so I think about those two moments where he took me there when I was 6 years old to see the Gateway Arch, and I, again, just remember it so distinctly, walking in this futuristic building, and again, terrazzo floors, and they had a diorama of the coming westward. It was the coolest thing ever to me. It was like it was history mixed with mid-century modern architecture, mixed with like just all the things that I love, and like these moments. And so I say, like, I talk about my dad a lot, but like my dad, honestly, even fashion sense. I remember I went through his closet once, and I said to him, and at this point I worked in fashion, and I was doing neckwear, and I was going through his ties, and I was like, you have a Dior tie in here from 1960 something. And he said, don't touch it. And I just started laughing. He's like, don't touch it, don't take it. And I was like, never mind, I'm sorry. But I think about it, and it makes me laugh that, my dad he had really great taste, a great sense of humor, was incredibly humble, and awesome design sense, and like used to do DIY stuff with me. He had the whole Bob Vila thing. the whole anthology of all the books, and they would read them and then do DIY work, and I'd be in there sanding things with him and painting rooms and all of it. The renovation, the design sense, the fashion sense, but the sense of community, my dad.
All right, I'm gonna move. So I feel so bad. I'm making you so sad.
It's happy tears. It's like,
Okay, good.
it's all happy stuff. Like, I mean, these are good things
Yeah.
to have to hold.
Yeah.
So it's all happy things.
So going back to the inspiration, you're getting it here too, being at KBIS, I'm guessing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love KBIS. I love coming here. There's so much inspiration everywhere. You know, I love seeing all the Kickstarter. I love seeing all the like new great ideas. Yeah, it's been awesome. And then I love seeing all the new things that the brands that we know that are tried and true. And I love when I see one of those brands like evolving and thinking ahead, and you think like these big brands can't, and then you see them do something else and you're like, good for you. That's amazing, because you know, a lot of these brands could get kind of rest in their laurels and just be like, yeah, I'm this and be that. But there are so many forms of innovation here that really excite me. And then I also just, again, the community, like you spend 5-10 minutes talking to somebody and like, did you see this thing? Did you see that thing? Oh, you know, you have to check this out. Oh, have you heard of this product? And, you know, I mean, so many things that I have found over the years of coming to KBIS have come through 10-minute coffee conversations with the community. So it's an amazing experience to be able to be here.
All right, so tell us what your favorite thing about being a designer is. Or favorite things. My favorite
thing is the note from my clients after, with a picture of them and their children in the kitchen, saying, "Oh my God, we didn't even realize you had put this organization in this cabinet, and it is changing my life." Oh, you know, or this look. It's not just about the aesthetics. The aesthetics are so meaningful and hold a place and are so important, but it's about the function and about how it lives with you every single day. And just when I get those notes from my clients saying, thank you, there were things here that I honestly questioned you and did not think about, and I'm just so grateful you thought about it. And I get those notes often.
Right.
And it's incredibly rewarding to know that I helped impact someone's life and made it better.
So we want to do some Q&A here in a minute, but want to wrap up with, I guess, more on a personal note, with all the free time that you have. What do you like to do?
Travel, yeah. I love going to new places, meeting new people, seeing new inspirations. It's everything. If you can't be in the world community, your life feels, at least for me, if I can't be in the world community, my life feels small. But then I also love coming home and putting my pajamas on. And so I would say it's like I have those two parts of myself, the yin and the yang to it. And those are my favorite things, and doing them specifically with my family.
Yeah. Only good thing about COVID was being able to wear pajamas more than we already do. So.
I won't. My wardrobe will not complain about that part of it. Definitely not.
Okay, great. Well, you've got a lot of people out here, and I'm sure some of you have some questions for Nureed, so take it away.
Brett was doing this before. I guess I've been demoted. Yes.
I'm ready. Hi. I'm a new person in the industry. I just started my company last year, and I'm also a mom.
Congrats.
And, thank you. I want to know how you inspire your daughters or the women in your life or the young women in your life in order to not see a barrier to this industry being so male-dominated.
So I have, my twins are boy, girl, and then boy. So my daughter's in the middle. I I will tell you that she is notorious for making her brothers do all the work. So she's smarter than I am. And, you know, what I will tell you is that but despite her being so many incredible things, I watch her doubt herself and question herself and feel things about herself that as a society have just somehow weirdly crept in there, even at 10 and a half, going on 11 years old. And so for me, really what I say to her is that I tell her the truth. I said, there are gonna be people who are gonna tell you no. There are gonna be people who are gonna say you can't do this. And they might not even say it with their words, they'll say it with their actions. Doors won't open for you, things won't happen for you, and you will wonder what you did that made you not good enough to be there. But you are good enough. You are always going to be good enough. They just don't see it yet. And so I tell her, I said, I can't tell you how many things have happened to me, not just as a woman, but as a woman of color, as a Muslim woman. So many things have happened to me, but I don't look at any of those things while revisiting them is my own personal space and my own feelings. I look at each of those things as my advantage, not my disadvantage. Meaning, I use each and every one of those points to say, either keep going, either keep proving people wrong. And I told her, you're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to fight every single day. And you're gonna have to fight more than your two brothers who, P.S., aren't, like, they shouldn't have it that easy. They shouldn't. They should be working harder. You know, so I really just try to instill in her that the work is worth it, but even more than the work is that she'll say to me, oh, Mama, I did this thing. Aren't you so proud of me? And I said to her, I am so incredibly proud of you, but what's more important to me is, are you proud of yourself? How do you feel in this very moment? And she's like, I am proud of me. I said, that's all I want. I said, I want you to hold on to that feeling. You be proud of you. I said, and I'm gonna be proud of you right there with you.
Hi.
Hi.
So nice to see you up there. I'm so proud of you. So me also being newer in the industry, I look at you as a mentor and an inspiration. So someone who seems like the everything and knows it all. Where do you go in times where you feel like you're having like a writer's block type moment, or who inspires you, or where do you go for mentorship? Like, what keeps you going to that next level?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for saying that. It's, again, incredibly humbling, and I'm not saying it to, it is. All of this is incredibly humbling, because I don't do anything I do with the intention that I was gonna end up on this stage. I do it because I think it's right, because I think it's good, and because it feels right to me, and it feels authentic, and because I just want things to be better for everybody. That's the genuine place in which I come from. So for me, when I need something, truthfully, I come to all of you in my community, and just those moments with each of you just to talk and chat, they hold so much pure love and value in them for me that I don't know that if any of you in the audience who know me realize that you all are my inspiration, and I keep doing things because you hold those spaces for me. And then, you know, it's gonna sound kind of maybe a little cliche, but honestly, my husband, he's a good man. He's a good man. And he is there for me. He shows up. So when I need a moment, sometimes I'm just like, I gotta tell you this thing, you know? So, I mean, I actually called him this morning, first thing in the morning. He was the first person I called, and he was taking the kids to school, so you know it was a great time to call him, but I knew it was not the right time to call him, but I called him anyway, because I was like, I just got up, I feel really nauseous, not because I partied, but because I'm about to get on stage in front of all of these folks, and I hate being on stage. And he's like, you're gonna be great, you're gonna be great, you're gonna be great. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. You know, and that's like, he is my person.
You definitely can't tell that she is nervous or doesn't like to be on stage, that's for sure.
Least favorite thing to do in the world is to be on stage.
You got nauseous, you've been crying. This is a horrible experience.
The only other time I was that nauseous was the day of my wedding.
Oh gosh.
I was so nauseous, and I ended up throwing up.
Oh no.
And I was like, is this a sign? And I was like, no. But I will say, best decision I ever made, best person I have ever chosen to spend my life with. And what I will say is that I think my nausea is an indication of I'm doing the right thing. It's scary, but I'm totally doing the right thing.
All right, any other questions that will not make her sad, please?
Oh my gosh. Don't put me in front of the Hallmark channel or something like that. Like, I'm not the TV of the week, whatever special. I'm not the right person for this.
Well, so Nureed, first of all, your husband was right. You are doing great. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Second, I'm really glad that you powered through that night at the Women to Women, because as one of your W2W sisters, I was in the same boat in my room, and you were the face that found me and made me feel welcome and made me feel like I had a place. So thank you for doing that. My question is about the fact that you're working bi-coastally, and being a designer and being a business owner are two very different skill sets. How did you forge your path as a business owner in two locations?
So, one thing about me is that I have never done things in a traditional path. Things usually are not following a straight line for me, including how I got to be a designer in the first place. So I think I really just trust my instinct and the idea of
Chelsie,
just because something is done a certain way doesn't mean that it has to always be done that way. And I'm a firm believer in that. So for me, I was working from home before it was stylish to do so, or necessary, depending on how you feel about it. I've been running my business from my home for the last 10 years. And so I think I had already established a way of working that prioritized my life over my work and enabled me to come up with a more creative way to have help and sourcing and whatnot. So really, really simple things that are available to all of us are what I do. My contractor is also my partner in an indirect way. And so some really simple things that I do are, I say to him, I know a lot of designers will take a margin, on construction. And so I say to him, I'm not going to take the margin on the construction. You keep all of it, and you be my project manager. And so that's how I handle it. And so I don't need a project manager because he's my project manager. And he knows me so well at this point that I trust him enough to be on site and to be able to navigate those questions. Same thing with my sales reps. Instead of needing an assistant, a physical assistant to go and look at the tile or to look at the appliances or to go do this, I resource my sales reps and say, can you get this sent and shipped here or shipped there? I was actually talking to the folks from Material Bank, and I've been using Material Bank for a long time because I'm bi-coastal. And people always said to me, well, how are you doing that? I said, I have Material Bank send one set to me and one set to my clients, and then I hold a Zoom call with them. And I was doing it, again, before COVID had ever happened. So there are a lot of tools and resources that have been available to us that make things a lot easier. Measuring, I use Canvas. I scan the whole space, I use Canvas, I send it off, and then I send it to my drafter who doesn't live in California or New Jersey. She lives in Illinois. So, it's really, I have assistants and I have people, they're not here, they're mostly remote, and I've figured out a way to manage it. But again, my career, my 15 years in the fashion industry included being the global vice president of licensing for some pretty large brands. And I was in Asia and South America and the Middle East and whatnot. And so when you're managing that many licensees with that many employees, it becomes really simple to figure out ways in which email, conference calls, different time zones, all of those things work. And I will tell you, it's much easier to go do the California to New Jersey time zone than it was to do New York to China. That was much harder when I had to take 10 calls from that distance. So it's all possible, and technology makes it possible. And I always tell folks, I'm not a huge tech person, but I am a fan of it when it supports you and what you do.
Do we have time for one more, or one more? Okay, anybody have one more question? Come on. Okay, I'm gonna ask it then. So if you could have dinner with anybody, living or not, who would it be? Besides your family.
Well,
Let's say they're already there.
Well, it's my dad, because I have questions that he never answered.
So he's there.
Oh gosh, living or, this is such a tough question. You told me you were going to ask it to me, and the minute you said it, I didn't know how to answer it. And I will tell you that they asked this question of my daughter for an application for something that she was doing, and she couldn't answer it either. And we had to go through one of those girl power books for her to think about another human to have a dinner with. And now I wish I had paid bigger attention when I was trying to help her answer this question.
Just maybe somebody that would be interesting. Maybe you don't have to be on the, you know.
I'm drawing, I'm so sorry, I'm drawing a blank. It's not that I think for me it's like I have so many interests, and so there's so many people to ask questions of and understand that picking one feels limiting. I don't know how to do it, but my dad is the simplest answer, because he actually, when he immigrated to the United States from Pakistan in 1958, he went to UC Berkeley, where I live in Berkeley now. And when I was growing up, he used to say, oh, Berkeley, I don't like California, it's the worst, I like the East Coast. And he was so anti-California and so pro-New Jersey that I always was like, I had so many questions, and I was like, oh, but what about the times back then and all that? And he told me some stories that I just wish I had thought about asking him more about it. He told me these things that were such nuggets, and I regret having not understood more of who he was before all of us came into his life.
Well, I love your choice, because mine would always be my dad too. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on this award.
Thank you.
Very deserving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
you did great. I hope you're proud of yourself.
I survived. I survived, and nobody laughed at me, so I think we're good.
You're in good hands here.
So